Have you ever found yourself sitting in your favorite chair late in the afternoon, staring at the same patch of sunlight on the floor, and wondering why some people still live rent-free in your heart long after they've left the room? It's strange, isn't it? How some words echo for years, a passing remark, a cruel glance, a silence that never felt quiet enough. Even now they come back, not as memories but as tension in the chest, as a quiet sigh before sleep. There's something I've come to realize, something I couldn't name until recently. It's not always the loud people who disturb our peace. Sometimes it's the ones we've tried the hardest to love, but never quite reached. And in that quiet struggle, we often forget something sacred. You see, like wind passing through pine trees, not every disturbance leaves a trace, unless we hold on to it. So tonight, perhaps we can gently ask, is it possible to face the difficult people in our lives without letting them harden our hearts? Can we walk through the storm and still keep our candle lit? I want to share something with you. Not advice, not a lesson, just a path, lined with old stories, small truths, and soft steps. And somewhere along the way, perhaps we'll rediscover a kind of peace that no one can take from us. Shall we begin? Part 1. See clearly, without judgment. Have you ever asked yourself, why does this person disturb me so much? Not just their words, not just their tone, but the way they linger in your heart long after they've gone. There's a story in the Zen tradition about a monk who was traveling across a river. While meditating in his small boat, another boat suddenly crashed into his. The monk, startled and angry, turned around ready to scold the person, but to his surprise, the other boat was empty. It had simply drifted downstream with the current, and in that moment, he laughed to himself. His anger, he realized, had not come from the other, but from within. That little parable contains a powerful truth. We often forget our suffering begins not with what others do, but with how we see it and how we judge it. Toxic people, the ones who manipulate, criticize, or drain us, are like drifting boats. They collide with our peace, often when we least expect it. But here's the invitation. Can we learn to see them without immediately naming them enemies? Can we pause before labeling them as cruel, narcissistic, or broken, and instead begin with clarity? In Buddhism, this is the practice of right view, the first step on the Noble Eightfold Path. The Buddha taught that right view is not just seeing what is, but seeing clearly with compassion and insight, free from clouded judgment. When you realize how perfect everything is, you will tilt your head back and laugh at the sky. The Buddha, but seeing clearly does not mean justifying harm or pretending negativity is harmless. It means understanding this: those who hurt others are almost always hurting themselves. Like the woman at the market who snaps at you because she's just lost her husband. Like the coworker who gossips because deep down, she's terrified of being invisible. Like the angry neighbor who lashes out because that's the only language his father taught him. None of this excuses their behavior, but it helps us step out of the trap of judgment, which often becomes our own second arrow. In a well-known teaching, the Buddha once said that when we experience pain, it is like being struck by an arrow. But when we react with anger, blame, or resentment, we shoot ourselves with a second arrow. And it is this second one that causes the deeper wound. So we return to the breath. We notice the boat has hit. We feel the reaction rising in us, but we don't feed it. We stay still and observe. The judgment begins to dissolve. And what is left is not weakness, but freedom. But now you may ask, if I don't judge them, what do I do? Do I simply let them walk over me? The answer is no. And in part 2, we will step inside the walls of your inner citadel. You'll see that clarity is only the beginning. Protection too is sacred. Shall we walk forward? Part 2. Detach, not abandon. So what happens when someone in your life continuously crosses a line but you love them? A sibling who shames you, a friend who gossips about you, a partner who uses silence as a weapon. Do you walk away? Stay silent? Fight back? There is a quiet wisdom here, not of running, not of reacting, but of letting go without letting go of love. There's a tale from the Buddha's life that speaks directly to this. One day, a man came to insult the Buddha in public. He hurled words like stones, his voice thick with anger. But the Buddha, calm as ever, looked at the man and said gently, "If someone offers you a gift and you do not accept it, to whom does the gift belong?" The man was startled. He said, "To the one who offered it, of course." And the Buddha smiled. Then so it is with your anger. This is non-attachment in its most radiant form. It is not the coldness of turning away, nor the bitterness of building walls, but the warm strength of choosing not to carry what was never ours to begin with. We live in a culture that tells us love must always look like closeness, that caring for someone means staying in the room, answering every call, enduring every wound. But the Dharma teaches something different. True compassion includes yourself. It is possible, deeply possible, to love someone and step back, to see their suffering without letting it poison yours, to offer them kindness from a distance, if needed. This is not abandonment. This is wisdom. In Buddhist psychology, there is a word, upekkha, equanimity. It is the fourth of the four immeasurables, and it is the hardest to embody. It means remaining steady, even in the face of other people's storms, not unmoved like a statue, but deeply rooted like a tree. Imagine that toxic person as a fire, wild, unpredictable, pulling air from everything around it. The more wood you throw in, the bigger it grows. But when you stop feeding it, when you simply watch it burn out its own fuel, it has no choice but to settle. This is the way of wise detachment. We do not reject the person, we do not try to fix them. We simply stop handing over our peace to their pain. You yourself, as much as anybody in the entire universe, deserve your love and affection, the Buddha. And so we breathe. We step back. We still love. But now from a place where our love is no longer tangled in suffering. But then, how do we hold that space? How do we protect that boundary without anger, guilt, or shame? In Part 3, we'll explore how Buddhist compassion meets firm, sacred boundaries, and how protecting your inner peace is not selfish, it's the path to true freedom. Are you still with me? Part 3. Protect your peace with boundaries of compassion. Can you be kind and say no? Can you be loving and choose distance? Can you care deeply for someone and still refuse to let them harm you again? It's a question many of us carry, especially those with soft hearts and long memories. The truth is, boundaries are not barriers to love. They are the conditions for it to grow. There's a story from the time of the Buddha about a monk named Sati who misunderstood the Dharma. He believed that no matter what harm came his way, he must endure it in silence. He thought that being spiritual meant becoming a doormat to others' unkindness. When the Buddha heard of this, he didn't praise the monk's passive endurance. Instead, he offered a teaching that was both compassionate and clear. Enduring harm does not mean accepting it. Wisdom is knowing what to allow in and what to let go. This brings us to a deep insight. Boundaries, when set with mindfulness, are not an act of separation. They are an act of self-respect. In fact, they are one of the purest expressions of compassion, both for ourselves and for those around us. Think of a garden. If you let every passerby pluck the flowers, trample the soil, or toss their garbage inside, soon nothing will remain. The garden will wither, not flourish. But if you build a fence, not too high, just enough to protect what is sacred, the blossoms can grow, the fragrance can spread, the beauty can endure. That is what boundaries do for the soul. Yet we often hesitate. What if they think I'm selfish? What if I hurt their feelings? Let me offer this. What if your silence is enabling their suffering to continue unchecked? What if your self-sacrifice is robbing the world of the peace you're meant to embody? Setting boundaries in Buddhist terms is simply right action, one that avoids harm, speaks with clarity, and honors the truth. And truth doesn't always sound sweet. Sometimes it sounds like, I love you, but I can't talk right now. Or I care for you, but I need space. The tone is everything. Firm but not harsh. Clear but not cruel. Spoken from a still heart, not a boiling one. Here's a small but powerful mantra for moments like this. I choose peace, for me and for them. Because when we protect our own peace, we are not withdrawing love. We are ensuring it has a place to live. But here's the challenge. Some people don't take kindly to your boundaries. They press, they push, they poke, until you snap. So what then? In part 4, we'll learn the quiet, powerful art of non-reaction and discover how silence can sometimes speak louder than any defense. Shall we keep going? Part 4. Drop the rope. Do not engage the drama. Have you ever found yourself in a tug of war, not with rope, but with words? Every time you respond, they pull harder. Every time you explain, they twist it. And before you know it, your heart is tired, and the peace you once had is gone. But what if I told you that the only way to win that game is to stop playing? There's a Zen saying, when the mind is agitated, the world is agitated. When the mind is still, the world settles down too. One afternoon, a young novice was sweeping leaves outside the monastery when an older monk approached. The elder tossed a handful of dirt onto the freshly swept path. The novice, shocked and offended, demanded, "Why did you do that?" The elder only smiled and walked away. Later, the abbot explained, he wanted to see if you were sweeping the path with mindfulness or sweeping to please your ego. A peaceful path can only come from a peaceful mind. And in that small moment, the novice understood, not everything needs a reaction. In Buddhist practice, we learn that drama only exists when two egos are present, one to throw the spark, another to catch fire. But if you don't react, if you refuse to catch the flame, it fizzles out before it burns. Think of toxic people as emotional anglers. They cast bait made of guilt, shame, sarcasm, or blame. What they want most is a bite, a flash of anger, a defensive word, a wounded silence. And so, we practice the discipline of not biting. We pause, we breathe, and we drop the rope. One of the most powerful tools in Buddhism is noble silence, not a silence born of fear, but one rooted in deep presence. The Buddha himself often stayed silent when challenged by insults, because he knew no truth needs shouting, no peace needs defending. They insulted me, they hurt me, they defeated me. Those who think like this will never be free. Dhammapada. So next time someone throws their hook, notice what they're offering you. Is it worth your peace? Is it worth your breath? You can still acknowledge them. Nod, smile, even, but inside, stay unmoved. Stay grounded like a mountain in the wind. This is not passivity. This is power. This is choosing presence over provocation. But what if the storm keeps coming? What if they raise their voice, twist your words, or escalate when you remain silent? Then it's time to step deeper into the art of the non-reaction. In part 5, we'll explore how staying still doesn't mean being frozen, and how you can remain open-hearted without being open to harm, shall we? Part 5. The Art of the Non-Reaction. What if I told you that not reacting doesn't mean you're weak? It means you are deeply, unshakably strong. Most people think power looks like speaking louder, defending harder, pushing back faster. But in the Dharma, true strength often looks like stillness, the kind that doesn't flinch when the world throws stones. There's a powerful story in Buddhist lore about an elderly monk who had become known throughout the region for his calm presence. One day, a young warrior, proud and brash, rode into the village determined to break this monk's composure. He shouted insults, mocked the monk's robes, even tried to provoke him with threats. But the old monk simply sat, eyes calm, breath steady. Not a flicker of offense crossed his face. After an hour, the warrior stormed off in frustration. A villager, stunned by the monk's serenity, asked, "How did you not respond to that?" The monk smiled and said, "If someone offers you a rotten fruit and you do not take it, does it not remain theirs to hold?" That is the art of non-reaction. It's not denial, it's not suppression. It's knowing you do not need to carry what is not yours. In Buddhist teachings, we call this resting in awareness. When we react, we step out of awareness and into reactivity. We leave the calm of our temple and run into the battlefield. But when we stay centered, we remain the watcher. The storm may thunder around us, but it cannot reach us. This doesn't mean we never speak. Sometimes silence is loud enough. Other times your voice may be needed, but only when your heart is calm, not when it's boiling. You may wonder, but won't people think I'm weak if I don't respond? Won't they walk all over me? Here's the truth. Nothing is more intimidating to a manipulator than a person who will not play their game. They thrive on reaction. Your stillness confuses them, disarms them. Like someone swinging their fists into the air, they grow tired and eventually walk away. Be like a rock in a stream, the Buddha said, unmoved by the flow of praise or blame. So the next time someone tries to pull you in, picture yourself as that rock, grounded, silent, whole. And when the urge to respond flares up, try this. Pause, breathe, smile gently. Then ask yourself, what would peace do right now? Sometimes peace answers, other times it simply stays still, and that is answer enough. Still, you may say, I've done that. I've stayed still. I've practiced silence, but they keep returning again and again. Then perhaps it's time not just to stand your ground, but to choose when and how to walk away. In Part 6, we'll explore the sacred practice of limiting your exposure, not as a form of avoidance, but as an act of inner devotion. Shall we continue? Part 6. Limit your exposure. The refuge of distance. You've tried kindness. You've tried silence. You've even tried to understand their suffering. But what happens when the fire keeps burning and you're the one getting scorched? Sometimes, the most compassionate thing you can do is to step back. There's a story in the early Buddhist texts about a monk named Meghiya who returned to his teacher, the Buddha, in tears. Despite his efforts, his mind was flooded with agitation. He had gone to a place he thought would bring clarity, a lovely forest grove, but instead, old cravings and inner storms had risen. The Buddha listened calmly, then said, Meghiya, the mind must be protected by good conditions, just as a tree must be sheltered by healthy soil. In this, the Buddha was teaching that environment matters, not just the forest outside, but the people we allow near our heart. In modern life, many of us feel we have no choice, but it's my sister, it's my boss, it's my spouse. We feel trapped, obligated, guilty for even thinking about distance. But here's a gentle truth from the Dharma. Closeness is not always compassion. Sometimes, space is. Let me tell you a true story. A woman in her 70s named Ruth had a lifelong friend named Claire. They'd known each other since college, shared secrets, birthdays, grief. But in recent years, Claire had grown bitter. Every call was a complaint, every visit full of subtle digs. Ruth, loyal to a fault, kept picking up the phone, until one day, after another long call that left her in tears, she sat down and whispered, "I don't think she sees me anymore." With the help of her meditation group, Ruth made a quiet decision. She didn't block Claire. She didn't send an angry message. She simply stopped answering every time. She created soft space, like clouds moving across the sky, and over time, the pain began to lift. You see, limiting exposure doesn't mean banishing people. It means honoring your nervous system. It means tending to the garden of your inner life. Just as we wouldn't leave our doors open to a thief every night, why should we leave our hearts open to constant harm? Better than 1,000 hollow words is one word that brings peace, the Buddha. And sometimes that one word is no, or not today, or I need time. You are not cruel for choosing peace. You are not selfish for needing air. You are simply remembering that you too are a being worthy of protection, not just from others' anger, but from the small, constant erosion of being unseen, unheard, unvalued. But what do we do when we've stepped back and the loneliness creeps in? When the absence of one voice feels too loud, even if it was unkind? In Part 7, we'll build the next pillar of your peace, a loving, wise support system that nourishes you in all the ways toxic relationships could not. Shall we go on? Part 7. Build your support system. The circle that holds you. When you distance yourself from someone toxic, you don't just lose conflict, you also lose familiarity. The voice you dreaded becomes an empty space. The presence that once hurt becomes an absence that echoes. So where do you go with that emptiness? Who do you turn to, not for noise but for nourishment? There's a powerful moment in the Buddha's life that touches this question. One day his attendant Ananda came to him and said, "Lord, I've come to understand that having spiritual friends is half of the holy life." The Buddha looked at him kindly and said, "No, Ananda, do not say that. Having spiritual friends is the entire holy life. In other words, we don't walk this path alone. Even the Buddha, awakened and serene, walked with others beside him. He had Sangha, a community of wise, compassionate hearts who reminded him, supported him, and reflected the peace he lived. And so must we. Let me tell you about a man named Walter. He was 82, widowed, and still called his daughter every night, even though she rarely answered. His neighbor would gossip when they met at the mailbox. His church group had thinned out over the years. More and more, Walter found himself sitting in silence, not the peaceful kind, but the aching kind. One day, his doctor suggested something unusual, a mindfulness group at the local library. Walter hesitated. "That's for younger folks," he said. But he went, and to his surprise, there were people like him there. A woman in her 70s who had just lost her sister, a retired school teacher struggling with regret, a man who spoke little but always brought homemade tea. They didn't give advice. They didn't try to fix him. They simply listened. And in that listening, Walter began to feel whole again. You see, support doesn't have to be loud or large. Sometimes it's a neighbor who smiles without needing to talk. Sometimes it's a friend who calls just to ask about your garden. Sometimes it's a meditation group where you sit in silence, but feel more heard than you have in years. And if you feel alone right now, truly alone, let me say this to your heart. You are still lovable. You are still worthy of good company. It's never too late to reach out or to reach in. If you find no one to support you on the spiritual path, walk alone. There is no companionship better than awareness, the Buddha. But when you do find even one person who sees you, who hears you without judgment, who reminds you of who you are when you forget, hold them close. That is your true Sangha. Now, with this circle forming, the next question becomes, how do you care for yourself in the quiet hours when no one else is there? In Part 8, we'll explore self-care as spiritual practice, not bubble baths or hobbies, but sacred rituals that refill the soul and steady the heart. Shall we continue? Part 8. Prioritize self-care, a ritual of compassion. When was the last time you asked yourself, not what others need from you, but what you truly need from yourself? Not out of indulgence, not to treat yourself, but as a quiet, holy gesture, a whisper that says, I'm still here, and I still matter. Long ago, the Buddha shared a teaching about a man pierced by an arrow. He spoke not only of removing the arrow, but of not adding more. He said, why, being shot, would you shoot yourself again? And yet, many of us do. We let the toxic words stay in our heads long after they're spoken. We say yes when we mean no. We keep going when our body pleads rest. We carry the weight, then blame ourselves for being tired. But healing doesn't happen through pushing. It happens through tending. There's a Zen story of a monk who lovingly polished a wooden Buddha statue every day. He wiped it gently, bathed it in incense, and spoke to it with care. One day a visitor asked, why do you do this? It's only wood. The monk smiled and replied, yes, but when I care for it, I remember to care for what it represents. In the same way, your body, your mind, your heart, they are not perfect, but they are sacred. They carry decades of breath, grief, laughter, loss, wisdom. How could they not deserve your tenderness? So what does true self-care look like, especially in the later seasons of life? It may be as simple as sitting outside in the early light, watching the breeze move through the trees. It may be turning off the news for 1 hour to listen to silence instead. It may be writing letters you'll never send, not to change the past, but to let your heart finally speak. Self-care is not selfish. It is right effort, one of the Buddha's noble eightfold path. Right effort means choosing what nourishes and releasing what depletes. You can search the entire universe for someone who deserves your love more than you, and you will not find that person. The Buddhas so sleep when you're tired. Eat food that loves you back. Say no without apology. Say yes to what brings you peace. And perhaps most importantly, forgive yourself for the years you didn't know how. The Buddha often compared the mind to a garden, and the truth is, you are both the gardener and the soil. You don't just pull the weeds of others' toxicity, you also water the ground where joy can grow. So next time you ask, what can I do about them? Maybe the better question is, what can I do for me? And if that question feels new, tender, maybe even uncomfortable, you're on the right path. Still, there remains one silent thread in this tapestry. What do you do when you've done all of this, and the person still refuses to change? In Part 9, we will face the most difficult truth of all, the moment when, with compassion in your heart and clarity in your soul, you must walk away. When you're ready, we'll walk there together. Part 9. When to walk away, the liberation of letting go. What if the kindest thing you could do for both of you was to walk away? Not out of anger, not out of pride, but from a place of stillness, the kind that whispers, it's time. In the final years of the Buddha's life, there was a disciple who followed him not to learn, but to challenge. Devadatta, his cousin, became increasingly jealous. He criticized, undermined, even plotted against the Buddha's life. And yet, the Buddha did not retaliate. He didn't argue, shame, or try to fix him. He simply stepped away. He walked on, continuing his teaching, surrounded by those who were ready to receive the Dharma, and left Devadatta to his own path, in his own time. That is what it means to walk away in the Buddhist sense. Not rejection, not punishment, but non-attachment in its most liberating form. You see, letting go of someone toxic isn't about giving up on them. It's about choosing not to give up on yourself. Let me tell you about Helen. She was 74, a retired nurse, gentle to her core. Her son, her only child, had grown bitter over the years. Every visit ended in shouting. Every phone call left her crying. She thought, if I just love him more, maybe he'll change. And so she stayed, in every conversation, every insult, every heartbreak. One day during a retreat, a monk said something that cracked something open in her. You do not have to be the fuel for someone else's fire. That evening, Helen made a quiet decision. She did not disown her son. She simply stopped chasing him. She wrote him a letter, full of love, but also truth. She prayed for him every morning, but she no longer opened the door to more pain. And slowly, the ache in her chest softened. Her laughter returned, not loud, but honest. And for the first time in years, she heard her own voice again. In the Dharma, we're taught to recognize impermanence in all things, even relationships. Some people are not meant to walk the whole path with us. Some appear only to teach us something, even if that lesson is how to let go. Just as a snake sheds its skin, we must sometimes shed our attachments, not because we hate what was, but because it no longer fits who we are becoming. So how do you know it's time? Not when you're raging, but when you're quiet and the pain still lingers. When you've set boundaries, practiced compassion, offered silence and space, and still, there's only harm. That's when the path forward is not through more trying, it's through release. Walking away doesn't have to be a door slam. It can be a gentle closing, a soft bow, a whisper, may you be free from suffering, and may I be free too. And here's the most important part. Walking away is not the end of love. It is the beginning of a new kind, one that no longer costs your peace, because you are not leaving them behind in hatred. You are simply choosing the path that leads you back to yourself. Remember that small moment we spoke of earlier, sitting quietly, watching the sunlight shift across the room. Maybe nothing has changed, but somehow you feel different now, lighter, a little clearer, as if something heavy has been gently set down. It's strange. We spend so much of our lives trying to protect our hearts from harm, and yet sometimes the greatest healing comes when we stop resisting and simply begin to see, not to fix, not to fight, but to see with eyes that do not cling and a heart that no longer pushes away. The Buddha once said, "Hatred does not cease by hatred, but only by love. This is the eternal law." And sometimes, that love begins with simply stepping back, breathing deeply, and saying, "This too, I will not let harden me." Maybe the people who hurt us most are not villains but messengers, offering us one more chance to choose compassion over control, to guard our peace, not by building higher walls, but by tending to the garden within. If this story touched something quiet inside you, perhaps someone you care for is carrying the same silence. Feel free to send this their way, no explanation needed. Just a small light in the dark, and as we end this time together, may your path be soft beneath your feet. May your breath return you to yourself, and may you remember you are not alone on this journey, ever.